I'll wait like a few more seconds, and then I'll start. Hello, everyone. So, I'll let them sit down first. There's no rush. And actually, I forgot something. There we go. Hello, everyone. So, everyone's done logging before, right? Oh, let me just start first. Oh, that's nice. There you go. So, this is me. You don't care. Next one. There you go. So I'm Gael. I'm not going to sit in front of it. I'm Gael. I'm an automation consultant, like probably most of us. And then we all of us have always. All right, we're done. So all of us, we all have that issue when we start running a script, we start writing a script, and then we think, okay, something got wrong, but I don't have an output. I'm not running into the console. Something happened, and then it worked fine on my machine. It worked fine in ISC. Then when it's production, how do you go about it? So just quick roundup. Who's been writing like some code just to do some logging? Yes, pretty much everyone, because you have to at some point. So what is the evolution? What's the evolution of the logging? So you start by using probably write host. You know, when you start in your PowerShell journey, you start with a write host. And then from there, you say, OK, this is what's going on in my script. After the write host, sometimes people say, OK, let's try to output file. And then they pipe the output to a file, and then they look at the file. And then they start to say, OK, we need to have a bit more flexibility. So they start writing a function. And then everyone's created a function, which is either log or write log or something. But then how do you use that in every script? Then at best, you create a module. And then it's always the same path, and then people are doing the same, and then you look like there's no proper framework. But this is not new. Every language has their framework for logging. And PowerShell is very good with the streams, and you can leverage those streams to, without any effort, just log the shit out of it. You can do everything with it. So I want to have a very quick look at the natural evolution of the logging. This is what I just said, like the path, and then what have you done, and then how can we improve on that? And how can we just leverage the PowerShell framework just to improve on that, and then everyone can use it without writing any line of code, or just one line of code. And I'm going to show you my implementation, and that means everyone can do it in different ways, and you can be flexible about it. But it's just the core concept that logging existed way before PowerShell. People have solved many solutions, so you don't have to resolve the same solution over and over again. It's there. We just have to leverage what exists in .NET, for instance, and then use that. So what is it not for? It's not for, you're not going to use that for security logging. There's what, in that paper, PowerShell Love the Blue Team, which you've heard of probably, you have over-the-shoulder transcription. That means everything that is running in your session is going to be logged, and that's going to be secure. That's going to be. This is not what I'm dealing today. There's other ways to. There's other reasons for which you want to log, and maybe everyone's got a different approach to it. So who's logging for debugging, for instance? Like something's running, there's an issue on it, and then I don't know what's happening. So I need to have some logs, look at a file and say, OK, that went wrong because of X. So who's doing logging for debugging in general? Who's doing logging for something else? OK, so are you doing that for audit or record keeping? Recording. Yeah. OK, so then you have something, an event is triggered by PowerShell. Let's say you have a create AD user, and then you want to know what this AD user has. Then you can say, oh, I'm going to send this information to a database, for instance, for audit or for logging. That's some kind of logging. So you probably have a function which is going to just insert a row in a table to say, I've done that today at that time. This is still some kind of logging. So you can do audits. And there's other things like you want to keep your metrics. And your metrics could be, I want to know how many times this action has been done by this team. And that's another way to keep your metrics. So the natural evolution, as I say, is like you start with the right host, and then as you progress in your journey, you have different challenges. And then in the end, everyone is writing their own write log or log function. But at the same time, what happens is like you start by writing interactive scripts, and then you have the -verbose, -debug if you want to leverage those. So usually most of the code already have those, because when you start writing and prototyping, you will add that to your code. So on top of that, you need to be able to do, oh, I've got this already, but then I need to add another function which is going to be logging to a file. So PowerShell has 5 streams, as you know, 6 since WMF5. And then my idea was, well, I already have this code, and I know other people that create scripts, and they won't want to change their code. So what can we do to have a common pattern to log it without adding any code to it, or very little code? The lazy approach is like, I don't want to write code, I just don't want to have logging. So some people just say, oh, let's redirect the output to a file. It was doing that, like, redirecting the output on the streams to a file at the execution level. Like we do PowerShell exe, and then at the back, you just redirect everything. Was doing that, anyone? No, so everyone's got a function, I guess, to write somewhere. So this is the kind of things you do, like a very, very basic. You have a write log function that you call every time. It's going to give you a certain format, and then you just want to, log to a file. And then say you want to change the format. Well, you need to go into that function. Hopefully, it's a module that you import, hopefully, and then you need to change it. But then if it's a module, then maybe on one system you want to have a different timestamp, a different time format. So then you need to extract that into a configuration file. We're using configuration file to provide the input to your logging system. Only 2, 3, 4? Okay. It's a good start. But then you see already the limitations. If anyone else is not using configuration file and you want to change the way it's done, then you have to change the code. And that's usually not scalable when you have many, many scripts, and then you have things that it's not even, you haven't written it, so you don't even know what they're doing with it. So the approach of the logging framework is that you have, you already, so log4j, I was heard of log4j, log4net, or this kind of logging framework, Logari, and these kind of things. So okay, I'll go one step back. So for logging in any C# or any type of applications, they always have the same issue. It's like, how do we create that logging? How do we output that to a file in a certain format? And then whatever application we develop, we always use the same way of doing it, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. This is why you have a framework. And that's true for many things. You start by doing one function, then you have to copy-paste the same function in many scripts, and then you just extrapolate and do, okay, this is something I'm writing 10 times for 10 projects. I need to have one module and then re-import it. This is the same principle with the framework, but then they need to be able to output to different streams. So who's sending things not in SQL or file? Is there anything else that you try to send to? All right, there's only 2 or 3. So what kind of system do you use? Database? No?
Database, but also EventLog.
EventLog, okay. Anyone's writing to the EventLog? Because it's quite easy with PowerShell. Okay, so you do send things to the EventLog. But let's say if when you develop, you want to send something to the console, but when you run it in production, you want to send that to the EventLog. Can you do this? It's the limit. Yeah, you can. No? Yeah, you can. Okay. So it's always the flexibility of being able to change from one to another. And sometimes you have a very long-running script. Let's say you have a script that starts and then maybe it's going to do something periodically for a few hours. Who's got very long-running script? The same script like schedule task or these kind of things. Okay, so there's quite a few. I mean, schedule task, I guess, is the easy way, or workflows on these kind of things. So Sorry? Azure automation. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Well, no, that's not a good thing. So when you have long-running tasks, sometimes like it works and then it doesn't work, and then it works, but then you want to be able, without stopping it, opening it, running it into your context, you want to be able to see what's happening already. But you don't want, during normal operation, just let it log and output to files. That's not something you really want to do, because files are going to grow and this kind of things. And then for logging, who's managing the files? So who's got issues? Who had ever an issue like files getting too big, filling disks, and this kind of things? Yes. So then what do? Well, you create a function that just rotates the logs, and this kind of thing. Or do you configure it? Well, you have to have a configuration file, or you've got to write the code to do it as well. And then if you want to change, it's difficult. And again, most of the time, the configuration is done within the script. So then if you want to change, you have to change the content of the script. So usually it's not really efficient. So let's get some demos. Can you see? Everyone can see? I can go a bit bigger. So you have a normal script, which is just a function you did, which is not at all about logging. This is just, let's say, your core, what you're trying to achieve with your PowerShell. You just do something with PowerShell. And then the idea is you want to be able to log what's going on with that. So instead of creating a new function or having something which is customized to this, you create a module, and then from that module, you will do your basic steps. That one, I don't want to tell him where to log. I don't want to tell him how to log. I want to say log. And that's what I'm doing here when I import my module. I just say, do the logging. So then I can run this. Let's run everything. So we can't see really well here. So it's just a random. So this is happening. This is happening in the back. So ignore that. That's the debug function I enabled. I should have removed. Sorry. So this is happening in the back end. Nothing seems to really happen. But let's go to. So you've got the file where you've logged everything, and then you have the pattern. So where does it get this information? And the only thing I've done for that script was to call the module. So you can think like, oh, but if you don't configure that, how can you change the variables? How can you change the content? Well, if you've heard of log4net, log4net is a framework which is configured by an XML file. And because it's on this XML file, you don't have to write any code. You just have your XML file that you can reuse over and over again. And then if you want to change something, you change in the XML file. So let's have a quick look at the XML file, which is just that. Quite simple. So that tells, so it's going to be a bit getting into, so you need to understand the framework to be able to understand the configuration. So I'm going to try to go a bit. If you have any question, just raise your hand and go. I want this to be interactive, because I don't know how you use it, and if you have any questions, just go for it. So on this one, it's everyone have seen a .NET applications config file. This is compliant with it. So you have sections, you've got your configuration, and PowerShell doesn't load it unless you load that into the PowerShell.exe.config file. But that's compliant. So it's something that usually developers know, and then if you learn that, you can leverage it when you do C# applications, kind of things. If you had a C# compiled application, you would create exactly the same file with the name, and then whenever you run that, if you have the log4net libraries, you can reuse that straight away. It's just not tied to PowerShell or to this module. It's just for log4net in general. So as you can see, that defines a few parameters like the value. of the file name. So these tell you, okay, this is an environment variable, and then that just logs over there. That's the file I showed you in there. And you can change all of these parameters, which is the date format. That's what I want. If you're American, you want to switch that one, you can. And then you have some custom properties that you can add. And I'll give a bit more details later on that. And you can change the pattern, and then you can have different appender. So how log4net works is you will define your appenders, which is how do you want the log to be managed? So do you want to send that to a file? Do you want to send that to something else? And that just lets you define what you want to send it to. And then it tells you what are the parameters for this one, for this specific appender. And you can see already that's a rolling file appender. So what do you think is going to happen? Well, it's going to write to a file until it gets to a maximum of 1 kilobyte. And then when it gets to that size, it's just going to stop logging to that file, create a new file, and then log until it's 2 kilobytes. But then what happens, like, if you can keep doing it, then it's not really rotating, it's just changing files. So then you just keep a maximum number of files of 2. So then, there you go. You don't need to have your disk fill up every time. You already solved one problem. And what you did is like just a bit of XML. So that's already a good leverage. And then you want to change the format. You don't have to change any of your code. You just change that here. So,
Can I have a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, did I get that right? As soon as you load the module
Yeah.
into your script,
Yeah.
it's automatically logging whatever's happening.
Yes. Because the module automatically found the file, the configuration file. So that's the trick I use. So if you ever played with a get PS call stack, then you know you can see whatever happened in your PowerShell session. So if you go back in an ordered way, you can find out who called me, who called the the import module. And then based on that, you say, OK, this is the demo1.ps1. And then the script, the module, it says, OK, I've been called by demo1.ps1. So let's look at the configuration. So I look at demo1.ps1.xml, demo1.ps1.config, demo1.xml. So I can look for those. And then it does the best effort to find it. And then if it finds the XML, it's going to load it and load log4net with it. So you don't have to say set logger blah. You don't have to have any configuration scripts to do it. That means everything's in XML and you don't have to mess up with your code. So the main advantage with that is like if you have an old code that you want to add some logging, well, you have to add one line of code, create your XML wherever is the top level of your script, and that's gonna load automatically your logging system. So something you can do, and that's so there's things like it's the PowerShell module that do most of it, but the PowerShell module is just adding the binary, doing some PowerShell tricks to get the information, and then everything's done by the framework. So it's not that complex. And then there's many features which is already in log4net. For instance, so I want to add a property which is my call stack. So I edited the XML, as you see. I haven't saved it. If you look here, I'm going to save it. And then I'll go back to my code. And I'm not going to run everything again, so I'm not going to re-import the module. I just want to add another write verbose, right? So I'm going to run this line. And that is not working. Is it? Let me just check. Let's go with that. Ooh. And that's the demo problem. I tried this morning, it did work. All right, let's give it another go. Oh yeah, I know why. Oh yeah, I know why that's not going to work like this. let's try. Okay, I'll do that demo just another time, but let me run it again. And then I do this. And if you see at the bottom here, so you've got the script file here. This is what is called in. So then you can keep logging about who's been calling the write function. On that one, you can see the log level as well. So I do a mapping in the log level for log4net, which is, I have it later, but the mapping like warn, info, debug, and then with the streams that we send the information from, write host, write debug, write error, and this kind of thing. So there's a mapping between, which you can change if you want to. So then I will just remove that and get to the next one. And I wanted to see that. So every time you have a script, you can have you just have to name the file, and then you can reuse the same to customize to what you want. So log4net provides you the ability to send this information to, as you've probably understood, many different appenders. Those appenders let you to send that natively, natively you have some features like a file, like just appending to a file, rotating file, as we just saw, but also sending that to a database directly, or sending that to the EventLog. So the only thing you have to do is changing the XML file, and it's going to send that for you to whatever bucket you want to send that. And log4net has been designed so then you can extend that. So if you have a custom file system, if you have a custom, if you want to send that to something really funky that you think no one else has, then you can create your own C# static class, and then it's quite easy to just leverage everything log4net does just to do the very last and send things over there. But very likely, many people have already done it, so you can already send those logs to Logstash, a file, Azure table storage, or you think about it, it's probably out there. You just have to find the library, load the library, and you're done. So if you don't have a config on your start, by default, it's gonna output your console. So as you can see, you've got the actual output, and then you've got the one which is managed by log4net. That is just to show you that this is the one that you have with PowerShell natively, and at the same time, log4net just capture this output, and then it adds its own pattern, so its own formatting. So that's the default formatting. That's why there's no time, there's nothing, but you can change that. And if you define an XML, you will have this. And as you can see, it just captures all the streams. You have the error, and then you have the error in there. Everyone can see, so that is the error which is logged in. And then usually when you run something in a script, you can capture everything that you want to capture. Say, I want to write the log this. But if something throws an exception and stops, how can you capture that? Has anyone a clue how you can capture that? Because that's a common problem, right? I want to know what happened, but because it stopped, it didn't call my next function. So I know roughly what it is between the two log functions, but I don't know what happened. So because of the streams, everything which is going through streams in PowerShell is going through write host and this kind of things. But if it's not going through any streams, like this test std out, so I'm going to run again, it's going through a command which is out default. Everyone's seen out default and wondered, like, what does it do? Well, I believe it's, and I think I've read it somewhere, it's just there so then you can hook into it, and then whatever is not in any stream, you can just hook into that one and find out. So everything, if you have this problem, you can already leverage that. You just get into, hook into the out default, and then you will be able to add your logs to it. And this is what happens when you do this. It's still, you have the fatal, which is how I mapped it. because write error is going for the error stream, but this is an exception, like a terminating error. So that is, I just mapped it to fatal, which is log4net's implementation of the log levels. Any questions so far? So what is how does it work inside, like under the hood? It's actually quite simple, and maybe you've seen like those sometimes, they've got like the squiggly things. Don't use aliases in script. That should give you a hint of how I do it. How do you think I can tap into those without changing the code of those? Have you heard of command proxy? Who's heard of command proxy? Okay, I'll show you roughly very quickly. So a command proxy is, PowerShell, since I think V2, allows you to create a proxy based on an existing command, even one you created or something you leverage. Let's say you have a start job, but you want, or invoke command, but you want to add an extra feature. You want to add, for instance, pinging. You want to ping the machine, test the connection before you start the job. Then you would create a command proxy, add your feature, and that would support everything else, because you would send, when you've done your test, you would send that back to the next command, which is the one you're proxying to. And then you can have it a different name, so then you don't have a command conflict. Or you can use the same name as I do here, on the other one, write host and things, and that just, it looks the same. You don't have to change the code, but actually calling my command before calling the other one. So how does it work? So let's do, so I haven't implemented yet the latest stream, which is write information. But I'll show you how I'll do it, which doesn't require a lot of code. So you create this new command metadata. Yeah. And then with that, it gets your metadata. I will show you here. Come on. So that shows you, like, it's got a lot of information. I don't really know. And then I'm going to run this proxy command, create metadata based on the metadata. And this is when Jeffrey said it's a metadata-driven framework. This is the power you've got behind it. You can do this kind of things easily, because everything about every command is already registered in some kind of objects that you can leverage here. So if I run that, you see I put that into my clipboard. So I want to show you what it does. That created the function that I can now call, and I can change. This is the content of the function, so I need to go function. Oh, sorry. Boom. And then I'll just go there. There you go. That's my proxy command created. So if I call test stuff at the moment, it's going to do exactly the same as write information. And you can see that this is all the code that has been generated automatically by PowerShell. I have done nothing so far. But you can see that it used the pipeline, and then it sends it automatically. I have nothing to do. If I want to do something every time, I can just add something here. And this is what I'm doing with the module. I proxy the write host on those commands. So every streams are going to one of these commands, one of this proxy. And then I send that to a custom command, which is write log. It's the same as everyone has already created. And then hooked into that, it will do the logs, and it will send that to log4net. And I don't have to do anything else. So it seems to be the same command. That's why you don't have to rewrite code, but you just hook into what you, it just mimic. And it's mocking, and then say, give me the input, and I will forward whatever you want in the other one. So if I wanted to add other parameters, I could add it there. I would have to remove it before I send that to the next command here. So if I do, let me run this. And I will show you. It's not really something that you need to know for the module, but if you want to upgrade the current one you have because it does something very specific, I thought that would be a nice thing for you to do. So if I do test stuff, and then I've got the details here, and that would send everything, like everything that write information does. So if I do, it actually sends things to the command. So that's the way I leverage, and then every streams, I just hook into every streams, and then I send that to log4net, and log4net does whatever he wants to it. The good thing is on this one in the module, I would get the information from the call stack, and I would send this information to log4net, so log4net can tell me which file is running, what is the process, what is whatever properties you want to add to that, you can just tap into it and just send it. So let's go to another demo. So that's an example to write to a database. So how hard do you think it is? Well, it's not very powerful, so you can have like, well, actually you can. I'll get into that. This is just the basic code. You import the module, and then you do some things, which is write debug, okay? So my debug, my debug is not enabled, so it's not going to show anything on the screen unless I have something in my XML configuration, which we're going to see in a minute. So as you can see, I have something because it's properly formatted, and something happened there. So let's switch to Visual Studio. If I find it, no, that's the other one. And demo 3. Okay, so I'm writing in there as well. Oh no, 3, that's the one, sorry. So there you go. You've got the logging here, which is defined by this XML. As you can see, this is the one we saw, the rolling file. This is IDEO.net, and this is the connection string on this kind of information. So if you see that, oh, but there's one appender and another appender, and then, oh, there's the console one here as well. That means that outputs to the console. So at the very bottom, you have that. You say, define my appenders, and then use those appenders to just do what they want with the logging. So that means with the same amount of code, just that XML, not only I write to a file, I write to a database, and I write to the console if I need to. If you want to disable one, just remove it. And then you can say as well, what is the value you want? So if you want to turn off logging, you just go and you turn it off completely. What did I do? Let's do this one. So this is not outputting anything anymore. No matter how many times I do it, it's not going to do it because I changed the XML to say, oh, just turn everything off. That's why that comes back to what I said at the beginning. On the fly, on the XML, you can just stop completely. Yeah.
Can I define different log levels for each appender?
Yes. So that's one of the features. Like you can have, and there's very complex things. I'm not really going to explain today, but log4net is a very mature, because it's based on log4j, which has been there for ages. I don't know, 10 years or more than 10 years, maybe 15 years. So they have a lot of concepts already implemented. And one of them is you can have a hierarchy. So this is just looking at the root. So that's for everything. But you can have different hierarchy, and you can have filtering. Let's say I want to log only the comments that match this regex. You don't have to write any code. You add it there in the XML. That works for everything. You can have different value based on, like this one can be just fatal, and then it will only output the fatal. And then you can do that for different logging, like you say, it's coming from this file, then do everything, and then for that file, just don't do anything. So like say you have a script, you don't want to have anything coming from your module, like you have a SQL module, SQL command module or something, you don't want to log these kind of things, because otherwise it's going to be too verbose. You will have all the verbose output for this kind of things. You don't want that. You create a filter, and you say don't output anything if it's coming from there.
If you want to log your errors to the SQL database, could you go database isn't there, log4net, can you put that as a logic in?
No.
No, it doesn't feel like it.
No, but so this is just the Excel. This is when you want to do something like this, you were going to start getting into the code, and you're going to start doing some logic in the code. You're going to have a script that does the configuration, and then basically where you have the import module at the beginning. Then after that, you would have set the configuration so that it's like this, and you're going to do something like this. Oops. So if you can write to a SQL, right, it should be easy to be able to write to a SQL in Azure. So if it works, it should be easy, right? Because I don't know about the connectivity right now. So there's a few tricks with Azure that I found out a bit late, unfortunately. But the problem is in your connection strings, usually there's special characters that you need to escape. So that's the problem with XML. It's a good fun, like escaping everything you need. And then the Azure SQL tables require a clustered index. I had no idea, and that didn't work. And then I found it and say, oh, okay, that is the only thing. So when you start by creating your table, like create table, and whatever fields you want to have. And then you define your XML. And in your XML, you're going to do a mapping for the value. And then how do you want to, what is the format you want to do for that? And then you say the size value, the DB type, and that is doing the mapping. I'm not going to lie, I just copy-pasted that from the configuration. So usually you have one, and then it's very easy to implement it and tweak it to many things. And then again, I can reference more than one at the same time. So that is just sending it to Azure. And then the cool thing is, with that one, you can just do an insert, pretty simple, but I believe a better way to do would be to just call a store proc. If you have a stored procedure in your SQL, then you can have as many information going on different tables. It's just going to be more powerful. And another thing that is built in, and I think it's a cool feature, because you don't want to be synchronously like, I send one query at a time. You want to bulk them out. So you can go, instead of doing one, you do 100. Problem is, if your computer crash when this happens, and you haven't flushed your buffer, then you won't have the logging. But if you have a lot of logging and you want to give it, like just buffer it, like 100 or whatever, is meaningful to you. And then you're just going to buffer. When you reach the buffer, it's going to flush it up to the database and wait for the next time.
Is there a way to flush the buffer within your code? Like, your actual the PowerShell scriptural writing that's benefiting from this module. So if there may be key points in your script, you want to flush the buffer to make sure.
So if you hook into so in that case, you will have to tap into the library, the log4net library, which is a DLL that you can tap to. But yes. No, but if it could be. So that's a kind of feature. If it's something, so I wrote that. I thought it was not really production ready to be on the gallery, but it's on GitHub. So this kind of feature I'm interested in, and then I will give it a go. On I believe it's just finding the right method in the .NET, implementing it, and that's about 5 lines, and then you're done. That's the beauty of PowerShell. At the moment, I just got the minimum working for my needs, which is loading the configuration, hook into the things, and then log4net does everything by default. So did I run it? No. So when you send that, oops, that's not the one. There we go, it's there. So this one is looking at, this is an Azure database. I can show you, it's really the same to be honest, but here you go. Oops, there you go. These are the one I've done. So you've got your logger, and a logger is an object in the log4net, but I use the logger to be per file. That when, if you have many files from the same script, like nested files, nested modules, this will tell you where it's coming from. So then you can always track it back to where you are. And I haven't put it here, but you can also have the line numbers, because in PS call stack, you have an object. As long as you push this information to log4net, you can have it. So then you know exactly which line, which file you had the issue, or not an issue, but these kind of things. I used that a lot when I was working and I needed to have an audit. And like every time this happens, like this person created a user, we need to know that's been created. Every group has been changed, we need to have an audit. So then you have the function to do it. The only thing you've got to do is like calling like write log, and then you create the appender specifically for that. And then XML is doing it for you, and you have your records in your SQL database. Nothing to do. You just some XML, say, do this every time you run that function, write this information based on these parameters, and you have your log. And it's not just a file like you have with SysLog, just a string. You can have like a field like a column per properties you want to keep. And as you saw in the XML file, you can also have it can be strongly typed. So it's oops. XML. Like this. Those are string, but that's the kind of thing that can change based on what you're sending. This is just string because it's easier. Whatever I send, I don't have to think about it. Yeah, I know. I'm lazy. That's why I created that. So, and then you can find on the internet, as I said earlier, on the internet you've got so many libraries, and all of those, like if you think about putting it somewhere, someone created it. So I don't know what, if you think about, I had a demo which actually doesn't work at the moment, unfortunately, but I sent that to Logstash, Elasticsearch, and then you can report with Kibana. I don't know if you're aware. So that's the kind of technology where you have your data, and then you send a matrix every time, and then you can have a pretty dashboard for whoever wants to see the process. So which one was that? Yeah, that's the one. So again, on this one, I left it there, but I could add that to the script, but that's more, that's to show you that this is not built in the framework, but this is how you extend it. You add the type, you import the module, you're done. Then you just change the configuration of the XML, and you say, okay, that's my Elasticsearch appender, and then based on that appender, you've got these parameters, and everything is taken care of for you. So you run this. I have a start process to show that. And then in Kibana, Kibana is the front end. So it's kind of a Power BI. And you can do that with Power BI as well. You have your data, you just tap into your data that you're logging, and then you can do pretty dashboards. A trick at the moment is I thought, oh, OMS is a very good candidate for that, so that I can have the information. But I don't think you can have a custom source of information unless you have a machine, like a Linux machine, and then you look at the syslog based on the Linux, and then you send your logs to that syslog. But otherwise, you can't just have those processes. That's the problem with my VM, I guess. Come on. Here you go. So these are the logs that I've been sending. And then from there, this is the bad view, I would say. I have a dashboard. Let's create a dashboard. And I create a few things. This is the event count. And this is just the difference between two. And these are one info debug. So then from anything you can think you can log, you can create pretty easily a nice graph to show the metrics. And that gets back to the DevOps, which is about metrics as well. So you know when things is used. And then you can have errors. You know how many errors you can have. And then you can have, if you have something which is a bit buggy, you say, okay, I want to get down the number of errors, see how many you have, and then see the progress you've done like in 2 months' time. And I think it's a good metric to be able to see your evolution and your iteration. And I'll finish with that. And come on. So just to recap a bit, so it's low effort. It's already hooked into the 5 streams. There's another one I haven't implemented yet, but as you see, like end of next week is going to be done because I'm on holiday, so I have some time. It proxies all of those. Then I create the alias, so then it hooks into it. It seems like you're doing right host, but actually you're doing my right host, not the actual right host. If you want to bypass it, you can always, if you know, like module name \, and then the command, and then that allows you to just go into the actual one you want. There's a drawback with that. Because you proxy the commands, if you have a binary module, it's not going to work, because the binary module in C#, for instance, it hooks directly into the PowerShell level, the .NET classes, to send the logs. So DevWired created something similar to that, and is hacked to intercept those things, but it's not something which is supported by Microsoft so far. So that's why I didn't really want to implement it, but because there's Microsoft people around here, so I want to say we need a way to hook into that. And that would be another way to, and that's probably going to be more performant than that. At the moment, this can be a bit slow, because every time, and I haven't optimized it, but you call the call stack, you need to write it, and then it goes to your function before going to the other one. So it adds a bit of processing. For audit or for long-running tasks, usually I haven't found that being a problem. And if you say log level off or this kind of thing, it doesn't go through the whole stack. It says, is it enabled to log? And if it's not, then it just doesn't do anything and go back to your code. So you can create your own log for psLog, which is one of the functions I use, and every streams are redirected to that one. So then you can hook it into that one directly and send the properties an hash table. And then in your XML file, you can just reuse those properties and just log them as you wish, like a different column for your SQL appender, for instance. So natively, there's already quite a few features. Like if you get the log4net DLL, you will have this. You will have a file appender, rolling file appender, console, a pretty console. No, it's called a colored console, which I don't see the value, but you have it. You can run SQL queries or store proc, so you can send that to database as you wish, whether it's local, on-premise, it doesn't really matter. You can send to EventLog, so you know with the EventLog you have to have your, how is it called, your source to be created, and that needs local admin, but once that's done, then you can just log everything to your EventLog. And that means you can hook into things like, I don't know, SCOM, or this kind of things to just listen to that, and then that just populates. Or create event forwarding to send that to somewhere else. And you can send SMTP, you can send emails. So if people like emails, I don't know. My previous place, it was like, yeah, everything email. So you can imagine the mailbox when you have every logs sending one email. Good luck with that. And then you can forward appender to something else. So that, let's say if you want to do some filtering, you can have an appender which is not doing anything but forwarding to another one. That's a good way to get. So you can't do like programmatic, but then you have lots of possibilities with the filters on those forwarding appenders. And that's something like really dig into it, but then you need to understand how log4net works and like XML, because sometimes like there's a bit of XML to do. And then it's really extensive. So I found that one, so I found the one table storage, log4stash, RabbitMQ, yeah, you can send stuff to an MQ. Pretty much any MQ now is supported, I guess. It's just a class. Usually it's like, I would say, I had to look at the table storage. I'm not a C# developer at all. I've done PowerShell, and then I had to open that one because it didn't work, and it took me not really long to fix it, and really I'm bad at it. So it's very easy to do. It's like you get the input, everything you inherited from a class which is already there, and you just have to say, when this comes in, what do you want to do with it? So if you want to add any feature, create your own. There's a lot of tutorials as well, because it's been there for ages. Very easy to implement. So that's what I'm saying. If you think you've got something a bit weird to log, implement it. The difficulty is going to be on the other side. If it's weird, does it have an SDK or something? But otherwise, you can reuse anything else. Like these are usually, I used SQL for audit, file for debugging, and SMTP because I had to, and that's about it. Yeah, database. And yeah, EventLog sometimes because it's convenient to leverage some of the tools. So log4ps doesn't do much, but it does just enough to look at the file. It loads the file, and then that's it. You can change the configuration. At the moment, I just log it, and then it does the default, which is logging the file. But if you want not to do any of this, you would send the configuration, it would clear everything, and then set up whatever you wanted to set up. It used the get pscall stack to say, OK, where is my information? So at the moment, I just get the file, the tree of the files, and the line numbers. But if you have any information you want, like let's say for errors, you can just print the error properties into your log file. It doesn't work avec, it doesn't work with binary modules, and it's slightly slow. It's a bit slow, but I need to work on that, and hopefully it's going to improve a bit. Do you have any questions? Do you think it's something that you would find useful to leverage with your scripts? Yes?
Definitely.
Good. So please do use it, and tell me if something doesn't work, I have to fix it. Because that's something it's good when you start doing something, but then when you start getting feedback, you just get it right. Because at the moment, I use it, for me it works, but I use it always the same way. And very soon, I'm going to have to do that using RabbitMQ. If it's something you're interested, I think it's in maybe 1 month, it's going to be probably quite evolved, because I need to send a lot of information to RabbitMQ. So yeah, so please do use it. Yeah?
Did you say where you host it? Is it on?
It's in GitHub, yeah. So if you go on GitHub and then on that tag, then you'll find it, and it's log4ps. Originally, there's a few log4net implementation, and on some of them are quite verbose in terms of code to be able to get it running. And I wanted something that I could just plug in an existing script and just get logged everything. Like someone else wrote a script, I don't want to even look at the script. I want to add one line, and that cares of everything. Yeah? Yeah, go ahead.
Am I able to log different log levels to different targets? So I want my warning messages logged to the event log and everything else to a file, because my warning messages shall create an alarming or something like that.
Yes. Yes, you can. You've got a hierarchy, and then based on the hierarchy, you can have like the default is going to be, if it's not within the hierarchy, it's going to use the root logger, and if it's not, and if you specify, you can say, okay, this one is off, this one is on, and you can go really deep, and then you have filters to be even more clever about it. But that's really getting into the dirty things of XML and log4net, so you really have to get the basics before you go there. But there's, and then you have a debug, so then there's a debug mode for log4net, so you can see what's going on and what's not working when it doesn't. And usually it's configuration issues, and it tells you, ooh, the XML is not properly formatted, and these kind of things. Just a last plug, there's a WinOps, which is a conference in London, coming very soon, in a month. So Jeffrey's going to be there, the scripting guy, Ed Wilson's going to be there, Chef is there, and it's really about DevOps on Windows, so it's kind of a new thing-ish. And I really recommend you to have a look at that. And yesterday, I put some flyers up. If you have any questions, just go and come talk to me, and then I'll tell you all you want to know about it. And there's quite nice information going there. And these people have a lot of experience of implementing, and it's not just about Windows or Microsoft technologies, it's how you make everything glue together. That's why they use a lot of PowerShell to do it. Dave Wyatt's going to be there, for instance, because the company he works for that organize it, DevOps guys. That's the information I just put back, if you wanted to see. Any more questions? No? Thank you very much. I'm gonna stop.